Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Observable Flutter. I'm your host, Craig Labenz, and today I'm very excited to take a look under the hood of DevTools to see how you can mod DevTools yourself by writing your own custom extension. You probably do this as a package author, but I think as everyday app developers, it's also great to know to look for them because packages that we use, maybe it's state management ones or routing or local storage or any of these different kind of fundamental building block modules and libraries that we bring into our apps, it's good to know that they may have DevTools extensions that we can plug into and use. So that's going to be today's topic, and let's get right into it. So first of all, everyone, please do recall, this is the Flutter community, and we are all here to learn Flutter together and just be all around wonderful to each other. So I'll leave it at that. Now, today's guest, literally the world's preeminent expert on all things DevTools, coming to us live from Google itself, the DevTools tech lead, Kenzie. I'm not going to steal any more of her thunder. Kenzie, I'll let you introduce yourself. Welcome to Observable Flutter.
Hey, Craig. Glad to be here. Yes, hello, Flutter streaming world. I'm Kenzie Davisson. I lead the Flutter DevTools team at Google, and we work on all things DevX, from your IDE tooling to your standalone dev tooling to static analysis. The whole part of your developer experience is what our team works on. So excited to be here with you today, sharing about DevTools extensions, which hopefully will bring you as developers into the fold of building developer tools and joining us in the effort to make Flutter the greatest way to build apps, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So how long have you been at Google, and have you been on the Flutter team the whole time? How'd you get here?
The timeline there. Yeah, I've been at Google 7 years. I started on Google Maps, and then I transferred onto the Flutter team about 6 years ago. So I've been on the Flutter team, 6 years.
Wow, that's incredible.
Pre-1.0, so that's way back.
Nice, yeah. And we always like to say that the DevTools product is potentially one of the biggest Flutter web use cases or customers, I guess. Obviously we don't know how many very, very large internal tools are out there in the world, but you're definitely piloting one of the major Flutter web players, right? That's the whole tech stack for DevTools.
Yeah, we write in Flutter web and use Flutter desktop for development at times, but we started using Flutter web before it was publicly available, when it was still behind its code name and under active development. So we've been a guinea pig for that effort for a long time, which is fun. We develop on the bleeding edge, so we get the coolest Flutter features as soon as they come out, and get to pressure test them
as soon as they come out.
Yeah, exactly. But nice. All in the spirit of making Flutter better.
And that code name was Hummingbird, right?
Hummingbird, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I remember that was before I worked at Google, and I think by the time I made my way to the Flutter team, the name Hummingbird was properly retired. But I remember hearing about it on It's All Widgets and whatnot, when Kevin Moore and Chris Sells would go on that all the time. Yeah. Okay, anyway, DevTools extensions. So why don't you set the stage for us a little bit on where and how they come into play, and who are you expecting to write them, and just what are your introductory thoughts?
Yeah, so I'll give a little history here. So years ago, we had some teams at Google and also some people externally that came to us.
I think you've got some family love.
Yes, that is my husband. Hello, dear. Anyway, so years ago, we had people wanting to build a tool into DevTools itself that maybe didn't fit the use case of every Flutter developer. So, do you really take on the cost of building a tool for this really niche use case that doesn't apply to everything else? And then also, how do you deal with, the dependencies that might bring in. And so it introduced some headaches there. And we built a couple solutions specific for package provider. If you may have seen over the last few years, we've had a provider screen in DevTools. Obviously, that's very specific to using the package provider state management package. But that model, while it was great for that use case, it didn't scale to putting any tool anywhere into DevTools. So we really wanted to come up with a way to allow the community to extend DevTools without having to be part of, be built in tightly with our code base, because that comes with a bunch of other limits that we don't want to put on just any package author out there as well. And so that's kind of where the idea of DevTools extensions came from, and that we've developed over the course of the last, year and a half or so. It's been in production and published for, not 9 to probably 9 months now. And there's several extensions that have been built in the community already, like package provider moved their screen from DevTools into being an extension. Yes. I know Remy, who wrote that one, is working on one for RiverPod as well. There's a extension for the Flame package, for Drift, for Patrol, and shared preferences.
Patrol.
Shared preferences. There's a tool published now, but the author of that one is moving it into the shared preferences package, which is great because that means anyone who's using shared preferences automatically will just upgrade their package one day and get a tool. We have ServerPod. I know Victor's been on this channel before, so their extension will be published here soon, and I think it's in beta right now. But a lot of great stuff coming down the pipeline in this ecosystem.
Nice. Yeah, that's incredible. I remember back when I was a web developer many moons ago, and I was using React all the time, and the React DevTools showed up in the bottom bar of Chrome. I just thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And obviously, to your point, that does not scale if that's an in-house solution. Only the tiniest percentage of packages will actually have those kind of DevTools, and obviously React. I don't know do you know who built that React one? I don't know if you were ever a web developer.
I don't know.
Did Google make that, or did the React team make it?
I don't know.
Yeah, out. Okay. So that totally, makes sense for why DevTools exists. I'm sure it was a very fun task. I imagine a classic engineering effort to establish the API surface that extensions would be allowed to implement, and then correctly kind of building out the harness that they all slide into. I'm sure that was quite fun. But now let's say I'm a package author and I think that sounds interesting, and I want my developers to have a better experience using my package. What kind of stuff can I put into a DevTools extension?
Good question. We have tried to make this so that the creativity is up to the package author, and we've just supplied the kind of foundational level tools that you need to do that. So going back a little bit, that was the pull for, say, Remy, who's the author package provider, to put his provider tool into DevTools, is that he got to leverage all that foundational functionality that DevTools has already done and build something on top of it. So what we've done is basically packaged all that in a way that your extension can use it. So that means when you build a DevTools extension, you automatically get access to the VM service, which connects to the running application, meaning you can pull information from the device. Maybe it's about memory, performance, timeline, libraries, set breakpoints. You can use all those APIs that we use in DevTools. So that's one. Two, we have access to what's called the Dart tooling daemon, which is a relatively new service that exists in our tech stack. But basically, that serves as a way to not only provide some common services, like maybe your extension wants to read from a configuration file in the user's project or write to that file. So there's a minimal file system access API that gives you access to, as well as serving as a message channel so that your extension can talk to other clients of the Dart tooling daemon, which are DevTools itself, the IDE, coming soon, the analysis server. So there's a lot of hooks in there for you to build really whatever you want. As you have a tooling need, if you're like, hey, I'm not sure how to use this framework to do this, you can pop into the Discord channel for extension authors. There's lots of info there. There's, it's pretty active. People respond. I'll respond. And we can kind of guide you on how to leverage what we've given you in the foundation to go out and build really innovative things.
Nice. That's great. One thing I don't know what the answer to this is, but it popped in my head as you were just talking in terms of an extension communicating with other layers of DevTools. Is there just a totally wide open pub sub? Like, can extensions talk to other extensions?
Ooh, technically they could, if they were to register a callback on the Dart or register a service on the Dart tooling daemon that another extension knew to call. Technically, they could speak to one another. So
interesting. Would there be? Is there like an ordering thing there? Like, could A talk to B, but B can't talk to A because A had to be registered before, or B wasn't registered when A. I don't know if I'm saying this. I might be twisting my words, but you know what I mean. Like, can it go both ways, or could an extension only talk to one that was already registered when it did its registering?
Yeah, good question. I think we do have some streams that the extensions could listen to for like new services that were registered. So in theory, the timing wouldn't matter. Your extension could just know, check for what services are available, and if you see the service you're looking for, you could call it. So. Yeah,
I see. Okay. And then this may be just very remedially 101, but one thing I wanted to just highlight for anyone who might be wondering, it's a known thing in Flutter that in terms of assessing your app's performance, debug mode is a misleading environment because there's all this extra code that runs. And these extensions, I'm 99.9% sure this is correct, but feel free to be like, well, actually, Craig. But no, these extensions are going to be running outside of the app. They're just running on the rest of your computer in the editor. And so while they may have some impact on how the editor is doing, they shouldn't ever slow down the actual app itself. Yes or no on that?
So they could, but that would be if your extension is doing something irresponsible, we'll say. So, even from DevTools, there's times where we will give you a warning. It says, hey, if you want to measure performance this way, that's fine, but it might affect your performance. Like, for example, if you adjust the rate that the CPU sampler on the VM is taking samples, then that's inherently going to affect the performance because you're asking the VM to do things. So if your extension is doing stuff like that with the VM, then you could skew some results. But I would just say to extension authors, be mindful of what you're doing on the device. Maybe don't take a heap snapshot on the device on the VM every 5 seconds or something. Like that's kind of expensive. But in general, most of the things you can do with the VM service and over the Dart tooling daemon is completely independent of the device. So if you're talking to the IDE or to the analysis server, that's not going to affect what your device is doing. But just be mindful of the environment you're working in.
Yeah, great. Okay, so the canvas is there, and the tools available, the levers and the buttons available to extension authors are designed to be quite open-ended, it sounds like.
Yep.
Is it time, in your expert opinion, to start looking at what this is like in the editor, or do you have any other preliminary thoughts?
Yeah, we can start building it, and I will just fill in some details as we go. So, let's get into it.
All right, great. So, Facile Tech, funny name, asks, can I build a DevTool extension to expect in-memory caches or the database? I think in-memory is the key there.
As in, like, on the device itself, like native memory, or maybe from, I guess I'll answer the database question. That answer would be yes, most likely. So even the Drift extension, I know Drift is a package for managing, data. So is shared preferences as well. Both of those have extensions, either published or in development, to inspect the state of the data. So if your package has some hooks for that, or you can add them, then yes. And in terms of inspecting native memory, I don't see why it wouldn't be possible. No one's done it yet. But
so I had imagined that the answer there was that application code and or library code would have to explicitly make specific memory available to DevTools extensions. And I'm really just pulling thoughts out of thin air here. So please correct me immediately when I imagine something that's not correct. But RiverPod, for example, is going to be storing a ton of application state just in memory. It's not anywhere else. It's not persisted to anything. And I have to imagine that the RiverPod extension is going to be able to surface that and allow someone to visualize and maybe click through nested data structures and whatnot. But the RiverPod package, I'm guessing, is doing something explicit to surface some of the state, dot state on different providers and whatnot within RiverPod to DevTools extensions. Is that understanding correct?
Yes. So typically a pattern that we've seen multiple authors use, and that is a pretty good pattern in my opinion, is to have your package explicitly provide maybe some sort of static instance object that your DevTools extension can perform an evaluation on. So that's how the provider package works. And I haven't seen what code Remy's written for RiverPod, but I assume following a similar pattern. Or you can have your package register a service extension that your DevTools extension can call. And so basically to register a service extension, you can use the Dart developer APIs for that. But you're basically registering, hey, here's this method. And when this is called over the service, I want you to call this callback and return this response. And then your DevTools extension says, hey, call that service. And then I'm going to take the data and do something with it.
And so that's definitely a pretty concrete area where a DevTools extension actually could slow down the app. If there was some function to expensively aggregate the application data and that was called all the time, then that
Right.
could slow down a running DevTools or a debug mode app.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, if you're ready, we can get into it. So let me know when you're good to pull up your editor and
Okay. Yes.
we'll start exploring.
Let's go ahead and throw that on the screen.
All right. There it is. What a beautiful extension.
What a beautiful day. Okay. So here's what I had planned for today. It's going to be a ton of fun. So we are going to build an extension from scratch, just to kind of walk you through that workflow of, hey, I have this idea. In today's example, I'm going to build an extension for an existing package, but you can also build an extension that is just a tool, which I'll cover in a second. But for today, I wanted to look through the Flutter favorite packages and grab one of them and build an extension. So shared preferences, like I already mentioned, there's an extension that exists. There's another one that's about to be published with this package. So stay tuned, or you can go stalk the GitHub repo if you want to follow along on that PR. Provider already has one. There's lots of these that do, like I mentioned earlier, drift and flame. But as I was scrolling through here, I was looking for one that, one, I didn't need to be a package expert to build, and two, would be time boxed well enough for this demo. And I came across Font Awesome Flutter, which is open right here.
And I believe we have the author in the chat. So,
we do. Exciting. Awesome. Yeah. So this is a icons package. You get access to all the Font Awesome icons by just depending on this in your app. And what I noticed about this when I went in and I checked out the code, and then I opened it, I checked out the example app, which I have running right here. And what I noticed is this example app is exactly what it says. It's a gallery, and it's a great way to explore the icons. It's got search. So if I search for, I don't know, dog, we can see that. Search for cow, you can see the things that come up. And this would be great as a tool embedded in your IDE so that when I'm writing code and I go, oh, I want to use an icon, I can look at the names, but I don't really know what they all look like. Maybe if there was a catalog, I could just open the catalog, search for what I want, and throw it in my app. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take this example app, and we're basically going to copy paste the code out of there, throw it in a DevTools extension, and show how easy it is to build one. So let's take it from the top. So how do you build an extension? I recommend following the, let's scroll the top here. Sorry for the fast scroll. Okay. Following the README that's on the pub package website. So here I'm just on pub. DevTools extensions is the package you're going to use to build these extensions. And there's a pretty thorough README here with a guide on how to build it. So you can, talk a little bit of a summary about what this is. We already talked about that, what you get access to, and what this looks like when you run DevTools. Either this is a picture of it opened in the browser, but when we detect an extension, we're going to go ahead and add a tab to DevTools for your extension, for your package. And then your extension is basically embedded within DevTools in an iframe. So you can build your extension as a Flutter web app, include the assets with your package, and following the patterns that we've set out. If we detect it, we'll throw it in here for your users to use. So what types of tools can you build? A couple I just mentioned a difference between, but companion tools is what we call it when it's part of an existing package. So like package provider already existed, then a tool was added to that package. That's what we're going to do today. I'm going to build a tool for the existing package of Font Awesome Flutter. Or you can build a new tool that's shipped as its own package. So maybe you've just had this vision of, oh, I want to build this tool to give users a visualization of their battery usage, or something that is unique to what you want, what use case you want to serve. You can build that as a DevTools extension, and then users would just depend on that in their app as a dev dependency to get access to the tool. One great example of that, there's actually already another YouTube video I'll plug here, where Khan on the Flutter DevRel team built a DevTools extension that was an AI-powered theme builder. So bring your own API key here. You can check out that video, but you could type in, build me a theme that does blah, 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 and it would spit out a Flutter theme that automatically got written to your project and hot reloaded your app with the new theme. So check out that video if you want to see a use case of not only using AI, which is cool, but also of a standalone tool. And then we talked about this already, but tools that interact with a running application. This is going to be a lot of your runtime debugging type tools, and then tools that do not interact with a running application. That's what we're building today. So this would be tools that really serve that use case of writing code, or the more development, active hands in code experience, maybe static tooling, another way to phrase it, that we don't need to worry about a running app with.
One thing, I'm nothing if not a pedant, and the combo of tools that interact with a running application and tools that do not interact with a running application, I believe, covers every conceivable tool.
You are correct.
In theory, could have just listed those. Just
yes.
kidding. The rest of the list is very valuable.
We should just get rid of this list and write any tool. How about that?
I love it.
Yes. Yeah. And then as I mentioned before, tools that interact with the project files in the IDE, and then tools that interact with the analysis server. Those are coming soon. Okay. So another great thing about DevTools extensions is it comes with a lot of out-of-the-box features, like automatically when you build a DevTools extension, you can, that tool is going to be embedded in the Flutter supported IDEs. So this is another big reason why you'd want to build a tool as a DevTools extension, as opposed to maybe writing your own IDE plugins or extensions, is one, DevTools extensions are IDE agnostic. So you can build a tool once, build it in your preferred language of Dart and Flutter, which you should be familiar with. It's published on the pub ecosystem, which your users are familiar with. Your users get it out of the box for free as soon as they depend on your package. And you get it embedded in Flutter supported IDEs like that, as well as being on the web. So it gives you a lot of great distribution mechanisms and really fits seamlessly with the Dart and Flutter tooling ecosystem and what your users expect, how they know how to access tools, which is going to help you with discovery as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I just think about, I haven't really used any DevTools extensions yet myself, but I expect that sentence will age very quickly as more and more packages start to add them. And I'm really excited for just in aggregate what they're all going to do to the overall Flutter developer experience. This is super exciting.
Yeah, that's one of the most things, or the most exciting things to me as well, is just to see what the community can come up with, because as much as we try our best to provide Dart and Flutter users with the tools they need, we don't have an infinite amount of people working on this, but our community is big and broad and, talented and all these things. And I can't wait to see what the community comes up with.
Yep.
Okay. So let's go through the end-to-end example of actually building one. This link here is to an example in our extensions package on GitHub. The example directory there has some really thorough examples if you want to look at specific use cases of how to register a service extension in your package and how to perform an evaluation. We've provided examples of all that here, so definitely check that out, especially if you have a specific need you're trying to hit. And we've tried to name them, appropriately to what they're doing, so it's very obvious. Hey, here's how I perform an expression evaluation, which is nice for you. So there's that. Where did I go? Okay, so let's get our hands in the code here. Step one is we're going to set up our package hierarchy. So this is explaining the difference between a standalone extension and a companion tool, which I already kind of talked about. But if you're building a standalone extension and it's just a dev dependency, you don't really need to be worried about code size bloat for your user, because it's just a dev dependency and it won't be included into their release build. But if you are building a tool for an existing package, like Package Provider, I keep using as an example, Package Provider is going to be in the app, the user's app at runtime and at release mode, right? And so you don't want to bloat the package size of the user's end app. So for that reason, we recommend keeping the source code of your extension separated from your package itself and just shipping the extension assets with the pub package on pub, so that you don't risk bloating user code size. And this is all up to you. This is a recommended structure, but if you want to get fancy with keeping your source code in the package and using a pub ignore file, or just relying on tree shaking to shake the dependencies out, that's completely up to you. This is just a recommendation.
Yeah, no, this recommendation definitely makes sense. Obviously, I think tree shaking is not going to screw it up, but this makes sense.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to do today. So basically this is saying split up your package and your extension source code. So let's go do that. I'm going to go to VS Code here. And here I have the Font Awesome Flutter package open. And I'm just going to create a new subfolder here named the same as the root. And I'm going to take all this code except for that one and throw it inside there. So just moving our existing app one directory down. Okay.
I've never done a transformation like that in the IDE. I opened Finder to do that.
I was going to open Finder. I didn't want to figure out how to make Finder zoomed in. So I just thought, I'll do it in the IDE.
Smart.
All about efficiency, Craig. Okay. Step 2, configure your extension. So this is saying that the package providing your DevTools extension, it needs to have a certain directory structure so that our tooling system knows, hey, there's an extension with this package. And so what does that look like? Well, it's adding a top level directory called extension. And then within that directory, we have a DevTools folder, which tells all of our tools, this is where to look for the DevTools extension. And in there's going to be a build folder and a config. So let's jump in and create that structure. So here I am in my package, and it's important to note this is the package that's providing the extension. So this is the one your users are going to import, not the source code of the extension. So let's create a folder, extension. Within there, we're going to have a folder called DevTools. And within there, we're going to build folder and a config.yaml file. Okay, what's in this file? This config file is the metadata that DevTools needs to load the extension. So this is the name of your package, your issue tracker, the version number. This material code point or material icon code point is an icon that we will show as the tab of your extension when it's opened in the browser, just to give you a little extra customization there. And then you can set this requires connection field based on whether or not your extension needs a connected Dart or Flutter app to work. So defaults to true, but in our case, we don't need a connected app. So I'm going to set this to false. This is for font awesome Flutter. And then go ahead.
One question on this material icon code point, and this is tangential to writing an extension. Is there a good way to translate a desired material icon into its Unicode value? Are they listed?
There is.
Great.
Yes, there is. So here's what you can do. Right here in this guide and in our spec for this, which is in the code repo, we give you a link to that icon file. And you can go.
It's a big file.
It is a big file. So let me get to this. Okay, now we're at all the icons,
and there.
Here's their.
Brilliant, amazing.
Right. Now I'll give you a tip. What I do, because I don't know what the icon looks like just by looking at the name.
Right.
Is I'll jump into some Flutter code that I already have open, and I'll just kind of cheat. So I'm just showing you my
shop
cheat
around
code here
for the widget.
So icons dot blah blah blah, and then you can see a preview of the icon, and I just kind of grab whatever one I want. So
yeah, nice.
Let's just we'll use that one for today, and then I jump to the definition. Maybe.
Oh, your poor editor is going to try to load that whole file.
Yeah, it is.
But it did it.
It did it. Okay, and now I can just copy that, steal it, get rid of that line, and we're back.
Nice.
Okay.
Okay.
There's that. And then for the link to the issue tracker, I'm just going to go grab the issue tracker from GitHub. Got that. And we'll throw that there. All right. So now our config file looks good. We'll go to the next step here in the guide. This is all just explanation on what each of those mean. I just talked about those though. And there is a spec on our repo that is going to be your most up-to-date docs. So if something's not working, check that out and maybe file a bug if we've not updated the documentation. All right, so now the fun part, building your extension. So this is just a Flutter web app. And this says, again, skip this step if you're building a standalone extension because you already did this when you set up your package. So we are going to copy this and we're going to go create our extension web app. So our extension is not called some package. We'll just call it font awesome DevTools extension. And we can see there it is right there, ready to use. Okay. Now in that Flutter web app, we're going to add the DevTools extensions dependency and then also this DevTools app shared dependency. This one here gives us access to a lot of those shared services and utilities that I was talking about. So think about it as everything from the DevTools app itself that we've pulled out into this shared package so that we can use it, so that you can use it. And we're all speaking a common language there with the services we have. All right, so let's open the pub spec. And I do not like boilerplate. So sorry, you're gonna have to watch me get rid of this real quick. Okay. Don't need Cupertino icons. Here we are. So we're gonna add, oops. Let's get to the right directory. Adding the DevTools extensions dependency. And then we're also going to add the DevTools app shared dependency. Now we're going to do something kind of wild today, but we are going to work from the bleeding edge. Dun, dun, dun.
I imagine it would actually be harder for you to not.
It actually is. Yes, I always am on the tip of trunk, as they say.
Right. You'd have to like build it the way your project was some amount of weeks or months ago. Which
yeah.
Would have to be a giant hassle.
Exactly. Yes. And I did I released a feature in this package that I want to show off today. So I'm gonna use the dev release. So
nice.
All right, we got our dependencies. Now what? Now the step to getting all the magic, so to speak, is to just wrap your app, your tool, in this DevTools extension widget. So I'm just going to steal this. Actually, we'll just steal the whole thing. How about that? And I'm going to go to the main file of my extension here, paste in what I just had, and we'll rename this to font awesome DevTools extension. Okay. And then here we have our DevTools extension widget, which let's jump in there real quick and talk about what this does. So this wrapper widget tries to do all the initialization that you need for your extensions. So it initializes the extension manager, which is a class that becomes a global variable for you to use anywhere in your extension, gives you access to call DevTools APIs that we've set up, like you can show a notification that is in the parent web app of DevTools, or show a warning or an error, or you can post an arbitrary message to DevTools, get information about the theme, get updates about if the VM service connection changed. So all that's through the extension manager. Then service manager, this is a manager for interacting with the connected VM service. So everything that we've talked about already about, pulling memory information from the device, pulling the timeline, looking at the libraries available in the app, setting a breakpoint, all those things that are going to be interacting with the running VM. This is what the manager that's going to let you do that. This manager also has some sub managers, we'll call it, that are available from this object, like a wrapper for handling isolates. So we have an isolate manager, a service extension manager, that just gives you a really nice, strongly typed way to interact with what we already know in DevTools. This is a lot of that foundational piece we've exposed, where we already have all the hooks hooked up for listening to new isolates, coming online, going offline. Did the user switch the main isolate? Stuff like that you don't have to worry about. You just get to access it from the service manager. So definitely check that class out. And then DTD manager, this one. This is a manager for giving you access to the Dart tooling daemon. So on this one, and let's just jump in here and show you.
Yeah, I imagine this one's very important.
Yeah. So this one, okay. So this is the Dart tooling daemon class, and I jumped through that kind of quick, but that was the DTD manager. Then you can get access to the current connection right here. So that gives you access to this class, which lets you do things like listen for streams, register a service that other tools can call, call a service that another tool, there we go, has registered. You can read from a file, write to file, list directory contents, look at what project roots are in the user's workspace. So if they open VS Code and have multiple app roots within there, we have methods for you to detect what are the routes that the user's actually writing code for. Now, this does have a limit because just for security reasons, we don't want any arbitrary code to be able to access the user's machine, right? So this is limited to just the files that the user has open in their IDE to be safe, right? So that
yeah,
is
I was wondering if
good
there was
thing.
any kind of sandboxing going on here, and it sounds like that's offering some.
Yep, exactly. So the Dart tooling daemon is scoped at the level of the user's development environment. So under the hood, how that works is the IDE starts DTD and then ushers those connections to the DevTools server, to the analysis server, to DevTools itself. So the IDE owns the process, and it says, okay, I know what projects or what project files I have open. Here's that set, and that's how we kind of sandbox that. So that's the DTD manager. Okay. And yes, all you have to do is just wrap your extension in a widget. So one other thing to call out here is this. Wait, there we go. This widget not only sets up these globals, but also provides the material app for your extension. So if you have a tool that you're building, you don't need to make a material app a child of DevTools extension. One's already provided, along with a scaffold for you to just throw your UI into.
Okay. All right. And is this to kind of keep the theme consistent with the other dev tools? Like, is that why this is all in here?
Exactly. Yes. And so that's where these themes right here, we are giving you access to the color schemes that DevTools already uses, so that your tool looks like it's just tightly integrated with the set of tools provided by Dart and Flutter, which is really great. And this comes too with a lot of shared constants for you to use, not only colors, but text styles and sizing and all that stuff. So you can check out the theme that's provided there and try to make your extension, play along.
And do the DevTools themes actually derive values from the IDE theme?
They do. So when you are embedded in an IDE, the IDE can set things like font size, foreground color, background color. And so to the best of our ability, we try to match that in DevTools. There is some requirements that if you have some wild IDE theme that doesn't really fit with a dark or light theme, that we'll throw it out and do our best guess. But if you're just using, dark theme, light theme from the IDE or something similar to that kind of fits along those UI requirements, then yeah, we try to match the theme.
Nice. Great.
Yes. Okay. So next step, what are we going to do? Let's talk about running the extension, because now we're here. I talked about that, but now how do you debug this? And so what we're going to do.
I'd love to see like a hello world.
Yeah. You know what, Craig? I'll give you something better than hello world. We're going to do
hello universe.
We're going to do this. We're going to do. Oops.
Please quickly code the entire counter app.
There you go. We're going to do hello Craig. Look at that.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. So we're going to build it using the simulated environment. So we've set up an environment that basically mocks the wrapper that DevTools would be around your extension, because let's face it, you building DevTools in release mode and debugging your app through an embedded iframe is a rough experience, right? So we want you to be able to build using debug mode, Flutter web app, so you can hot restart, quickly iterate. And for that, we've created this simulated environment wrapper. So basically, this box over here to the left, number 1, that's going to be your extension. And over to the right is kind of our sandboxed DevTools environment, where we'll show you the logs of the messages that would have gone back and forth to DevTools, and as well as let you do things that may be triggered by DevTools, like toggling the theme and see how your extension reacts, or forcing a reload, or the app hot restarting or hot reloading. And then we let you connect to a running app if that's something you need, as well as to the Dart tooling daemon if you need a local instance of that. So how do we do this? It's pretty simple and straightforward. There's an environment parameter called use simulated environment, and you just need to set that to true. So if you like to run your app from the command line, this is what you're going to want to do. Run it with that parameter to true. Or if you like to run your app from the IDE, VS Code in this example, like I do, I'm just going to add this argument to my run config for the extension.
And that adds a global constant to the to the Dart app once it's running.
Exactly. And so what the DevTools extension widget does is it's looking for this environment parameter, and then we do some things a little bit different based on whether that's true or false. Okay, this is red and it's driving me nuts, so we're going to get rid of that test. Okay, so let's go to run. Let's check out our configurations. Here we go, Font Awesome DevTools extension. I'm going to add that argument there. And let's add a little label so we know this is the simulated environment. Okay, then we go to our run menu, and there it is. Font Awesome DevTools extension plus the simulated environment. So let's give that a shot. And actually, we need to make sure that Chrome is selected. So we do that.
Yeah, true. You explicitly created a Flutter web app for this.
I did. And I will talk more about the sidebar, Flutter sidebar later, but this is a neat newish feature, I'd say, in the last year or so, where you can access your debug sessions, see what devices you have enabled, enable new devices for the project, open the developer tools, all that good stuff. And it also gives you access to extensions, which I'll show when we get ready to actually run our extension on a real app. But for now, selected Chrome, and let's run this extension. In the meantime, while we wait, as much as Hello Craig is pretty cool, we are going to we're going to put some real content in here. And for that,
all right,
like I showed you with this example app, this already looks pretty good. We're gonna steal it. So we'll go down to here. And I'm just gonna take the code directly from this main file. And we might have to copy out a couple of these other files, but here we go. Okay, we're running. Let me make that a lot bigger. That is really small. So.
Yeah, it's gonna. Oh, there it comes.
There it goes. Okay.
What a UI. What a DevTools extension. Ah.
There we go. Okay.
Just
Hello, Craig. Yeah, I think this is the best one yet. We should just publish it. Okay. So like I said, this gives you access to things like toggling the theme. You can see the extension new to, react to that properly. You can force reload the extension. This is something your users might do if, I don't know, maybe something gets out of sync or it's not behaving properly. They might just throw up their hands and, turn it off, turn it back on. I know I do that myself quite often. So these little help menus give you some information. If you look at this and you're like, I don't know how to start the Dart tooling daemon. Well, we've told you how. And yeah, there's some easy ways for you to get access to this. So that is listed there for you. But let's go do something real with this extension. So we'll go back to our code, and I'm going to take this Font Awesome gallery, and we're just going to copy the whole thing. It's not plagiarism if it's open source, right? Or in the same package.
I think it's not plagiarism if the person who wrote it's really excited to see it getting used. That helps as well.
Yeah. Okay. Oops, I did that wrong. So actually, I'm going to create a new folder here. Let's call it gallery.dart. throw it in there. And we need a couple imports. So let's import material. Okay, fixed a lint there. And so what's missing? We had this icons variable that was available in the example app. Oh, and then this is from the font awesome icon package. So I actually need to add a dependency on that.
Yeah, sure does make sense. We would need to import the package that we're going to debug.
Yes. And that's not always the case, but it is in this example since we're using this, using these icons. But
yeah, I imagine it's probably more common when you don't connect to a running app. If you are connecting to the running app, then.
Okay. So let's import. Okay, got that import. Now we just have this icons variable. So let's figure out what that was from.
Yeah, icons.dart looks promising.
Yeah, yes, it does. Okay. Icons. Yes, it's from icons.dart. So I'm just going to copy these two files, which was the list of icons and this example icon class. In a perfect world, we'd find a better way to share this, but this is not a perfect world. This is a demo. This is a demo world. So we're going to steal it. And then what was the other one?
Yeah,
example icon. Okay, and now the gallery just needs to import that icons file. All right, everything looks
looking
decent.
Great.
Okay, so let's take this. Let's use it in our extension. Sorry, Craig, you're out. Font Awesome Gallery Home is in.
This is probably a net improvement.
All right. Yeah. So you can see we're still on Hello Craig. Let's do hot reload here. And the web app's going to reload. And now we have our gallery. You can see some of these icons didn't load. Not sure why, but nothing a full restart can't fix.
Yeah, that was my thought. Oh, because you didn't you add an extension during that, like in that life cycle of the app? So we'd have to do a full restart. You added Font Awesome during.
Yeah. So that's probably the kicker.
Now this hanging, that's.
Well, this is a full restart, so it's expected to take a little longer, but it should be fairly quick. There we go. We're back.
Wow. Okay. All right.
We are back.
So that was not an unusual restart time. So someone shouldn't be discouraged if they see that.
That was not an unusual full restart. Like I killed the app and restarted it.
I see. Okay.
For a hot restart, I would say that might be a little slow. But for a full restart, not bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. This is the DevTools extension. Got them.
Yeah.
Now, not everything's perfect, right? Like the icons are a little too dark for this theme. And the text in the search should be adjusted. So let's see what it looks like. Yeah, light mode looks fine, but let's make this look a little more DevTools proper, so to speak. So we're going to do a couple things. One, let's jump in here. One thing we're going to do is, like I said, we can get rid of this scaffold because DevTools already has one. Not that it hurts anything to have two. Wow, these tooltips are big. Okay.
One of the funny things about scaffolds is they don't automatically mess everything up by nesting them.
Yeah, they don't.
You could give them both app bars, and now you're in a weird space. But
right. Yeah, so I'm just going to get rid of it. And I took that top search bar. It's in my buffer right now, but I'll fix this up. And then let's just wrap this grid view in a column. And we'll put that back as the first child. And then this needs to be in an expanded widget to make the flex happy. So that's one thing we're going to do. And then what else? One thing that the app did is when you clicked on a icon, it pushed a new route.
Shows it.
Yeah, which we don't need to do for our case. What I'd actually rather do is in this on tap method. Yeah, I want to copy to the clipboard. Okay, so what is going on?
By the way, you I guess, is it all just line 44? Is that the only thing that needs to change?
No, I want this whole one here.
Oh, there's a bigger on tap.
Bigger on tap. Yeah, this whole nest. Oh, because the route that it pushes also has an on tap, so that's why they're nested.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
To pop, of course.
Here we go. And what I'm going to do, we'll use this extensions manager to call a copy to clipboard method. And this has some workarounds that you may need for copying within an embedded IDE environment. So that's why we're using this versus just trying to, set some clipboard API. But we're going to copy, let's do font awesome icon dot. And then we have the icon and scope here. We'll do icon dot title. Okay. And then when this is successful, we'll say copied. Well, actually, let's put this in a variable.
Okay.
Okay. We're going to copy this to the clipboard and then say copied to the clipboard. All right. What did I do wrong? This is okay. So there's the on tap. Fix that up. And what else? Well, let's go check out how that hot reloaded so far. So now we can see when I clicked it. Yeah, we have a log in the simulated environment. We sent an event from the extension to DevTools with this message.
No, I was expecting to see the success message in like a toast.
You would if we weren't in the simulated environment. So yeah, that notification provider is in the DevTools itself, which we don't have here. We just have our extension.
Got it.
Yes, we will see that though at live time here soon. Okay, so then the last thing we want to do, these icons, one, are the wrong color. Two, they look a little big. And this text was the wrong color. So we can go and clean that up. And I'll actually show, since we're here, you can use the inspector while you're debugging your extension, which is pretty nice.
Boy, does that answer a question that I've got queued up.
Perfect. So let's say this is, I didn't know exactly where that icon was, and this was actually a complicated extension. Well, you can use select widget mode to select that extension. And what that did is automatically highlighted not only the widget, but also the line of code where that widget lives. So let's use some predefined constants from DevTools for the size of this.
Okay.
So actions icon size is something that's already provided by the DevTools app. So this is in that theme file I mentioned where if you use DevTools app shared, we give you all sorts of size constants that we use, which would make your extension, look like it fits right in. One of these, we have actions icon size, which is a little bigger, and then a default icon size, which is pretty small. So we're going to use that. And then for the color, we're also going to use one of the predefined colors from DevTools. So we'll use color scheme. Yeah, let's do the primary color. And we can jump over, see what that looks like. Okay.
Oh,
there we go.
you'll love to see it.
And now it fits right in. And then this text, that's the wrong color. So
Boy, do we know how to fix it.
let's go to the text. And we could use the inspector the same way. I just happen to know this is where the text field is. And let's do the same thing. So we'll do theme. Why don't we have, oh. And we'll use a predefined text style. Oh, that's color. Let's just do this.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, so you're going to keep the default size.
Yeah. And this is, again, we have lots of extension methods you can use on the theme. For example,
nice.
It's dark theme, regular text style with color, bold text style, error text style, fixed font text style, all that stuff. All righty. Fix that. Let's make sure everything looks good over here. Hello.
Incredible.
Okay. Incredible. So this is great and all, but how about we see it in a real DevTools environment?
Yep.
That's the next step. So use a real environment. For this, we need to do a couple things. One, we got to build the extension web app and package those assets with the package that's providing the extension. And then two, we need to run a test app that depends on that package so that you can see the end user experience of what your users would have. So we have this build and copy command, which does exactly that. We go to our extension web app directory, do a pub get, make sure everything's good, then run that command to build the extension and copy the assets to the directory we expect it to be in. So come in here.
This documentation is really strong.
Thank you.
I gotta say.
Appreciate that. Tried to make it easy to follow. And if
thorough and clear.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And if you or folks in the community find errors, please file an issue or feel empowered to jump in and write a PR. We will look at it. Okay. So here I'm running the build and copy command from my, actually I'm in the wrong directory, so I almost gave you really bad advice. You got to do this from the DevTools extension directory. Yes, so run the Flutter pub get. Okay, now I'm running it from that directory. The source is dot. That's where I'm at right now. That's where the source code is. And then the destination for the built assets is going to be in my parent package. So this is just one directory up, Font Awesome Flutter, then extension DevTools. That's where we want the build to go. So let's run that. And that's going to compile our web app and move the source over. So when this is done running, what we will see is this Font Awesome Flutter package in the extension directory has this build, DevTools build folder. This is going to get populated with the sources for our web app, or the built assets. And then once we do that, while that's running, I'll kind of talk about the next step. We also have this validate command, which you're going to want to run to make sure that your package is in good shape for publishing. So the worst thing would be you announce, oh, I have this extension, and you misspelled one little thing in the config file, and now users can't see it. So once you're ready to publish, you just want to make sure everything's validated and looks good to go. Okay, so that finished, and now we can see there's the build of our DevTools extension.
And this is just a totally stock Flutter web build?
Yep, stock Flutter web build. If we peeked through the code, I'm sure we could find some breadcrumbs of what we just built. But yeah, it's just the build output of your app. All right, so let's validate it. Oops, let's do that here. So Dart run validate package. And the package is the font awesome Flutter package. Okay.
Oh, because we're in the extension, so we pass it the package that we're validating against.
Yes, exactly. And we have to run this from the extension package itself because that's where the DevTools extensions dependency is, and that's where these executables come from. So, but yes, all part of the workflow here. So now we're validated. Okay, next step: prepare a test environment with a dependency on your pub package that's providing the extension. So what does this look like? This could be any arbitrary app. I am going to use this Veggie Seasons app today. It's one of the Flutter samples. And it just so happens to already have a dependency on Font Awesome Flutter. But this is the published version. We don't want to be using the published version. We want to use the version of Font Awesome Flutter from my local machine that we just built and added a dependency or added the extension to. So to do that, you just need to add a dependency override to grab the dependency from path instead of from
the version.
pub.
Yeah.
So we can just validate that here, make sure we're getting the the dependency we expect. So you can see that Font Awesome Flutter overridden to Font Awesome Flutter from path. And then what we're going to do is I don't need a running app for this. So we'll show opening the extension without the running app. But here's the sidebar in Flutter, which I showed a little bit of already. And you can see we have our debug sessions here. You have your devices, DevTools tools, and then DevTools extensions. So any DevTools extensions that are available from your project are going to be here. You can see this provider extension is also available because this app depends on package provider. But that one requires an active debug session, so it's grayed out for now. However, Font Awesome Flutter doesn't need a running app, so we can just open that right up. And there it is, right in the user's IDE, ready to use.
Dang. So extensions are not running all the time. It just launched. Is that correct?
That is correct. So yeah, the embedded iframe here is only going to get opened when the user opens that extension. Now you can also open DevTools in the browser, and you see there's the extension there as well, and there's that icon we picked out randomly.
Yeah,
it shows up
pages or something. Yeah.
yeah. But you can open it here, so your users aren't constrained to the IDE environment, but for certain tools, being able to use it in the IDE is a really nice experience. So that is available there.
Absolutely. And then here, can you have more than one? Like, let's say there was another extension and we clicked on that tab. Does the Font Awesome extension stay running?
Yes. So let's, I'll show you that. Actually, let's run an app because then the provider extension will show as well.
Yep.
Okay, so let's run that. Oh no. Actually, looks like the Flutter daemon just died, so we'll just do a quick reload.
This too shall pass.
Yes.
They said about the Flutter daemons, individual, as a single invocation.
All right. Now, that's fine. Let's run Veggie Seasons. And that should launch on our simulator here. And so once Veggie Seasons is running, I'll do two things. I'll show the extension in the browser so you can see the multiple tab view package provider there as well. And then let's use it to change some icons in our app.
Yeah. That's that. Oh, that and only that. Close the loop.
Yes. Yes, we have to prove it works.
Mm-hmm. Man, this has been a tight demo.
Thank you. Only a couple snafus. That's all you can hope for, really, you know.
Nothing here rises to the level of snafu. Trust.
Imperfections.
Okay. I have a lot of snafus. Like spend 30 minutes debugging something when it's like I didn't press the on button or something.
Oh, yes.
Oh, this has been smooth, let me tell you.
You know, behind these computer screens, we are real people. Make mistakes. Happens. That's what
Okay,
tests
so
are
we
for.
got some. I thought it was pretty humorous earlier. There was a test that was read, and you're like, delete. The best way to get all the tests passing.
Yeah, tests are green.
And if they're not,
Okay.
delete them.
Yeah, here we go. Oh no, I think actually, yeah. All right, so let's look at some icons in this app.
Those are apples and avocados. Yep.
Indeed. So let's open the sidebar here. And
that's why it's called Veggie Seasons. It's to tell you which vegetables are in season.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
I literally never put that together.
I should actually use this for the garden I'm attempting to grow. That's not going well. So, all right. Let's look at the inspector because I want to change a couple icons and ignore this release notes. That's again because I'm on the bleeding edge. So if you see some things and you're like, that's not normal, well, it is on master. Okay, so let's go to inspect. Oh, wrong app. Let's look at this settings icon here. So if I go back to my code, there it is. I'm using Cupertino icons. Okay, maybe I want to use a font awesome icon here. So how about
gear?
Gear. How about that? Ooh, yes.
There we go.
I like this one. Gears. So there's the notification you're looking for. Copied font awesome icons dot gears.
We got it.
To clipboard. And there it is. Paste it in. Save to hot reload. And there it is. There's our font awesome icon. Turn that off. So that's
pretty good.
Yeah, that's the workflow. We can copy, paste these wherever we want. Now let's cure your curiosity here, Craig, and show you what it looks like for multiple extensions. So now we're connected to an app. So now the provider extension shows up as well.
Okay. All right.
Because this extension requires a connected app. And so here's an example too of something you can do with an extension like provider, which this is pulling the providers from the live app and letting us inspect the state of those. So here's an example. This is the apples veggie object, which as we can see is right there.
Classic vegetable.
Classic, yeah, classic veggie there. Well, anyway, so my garden is where your favorites are, and we can see that apple is not a favorite vegetable. Some would argue it's not a vegetable at all, but it could be a favorite. So,
there is actually a category there. Look, it says category is veggie category fruit.
Fruit. See, it knows.
Love it.
So let's see if we can hack at this here. Change it from is favorite false to is favorite true. When I did that, the provider extension edited the state of that provider object on the running app, and then hot reload or hot restarted it. And so now apples is in my favorites. So this is an example of something you can do with your extension where you're actually modifying state on the device, inspecting state, and there's a lot of powerful things you can do here with your tool, and the sky's the limit. Up to you.
Okay. First of all, that was amazing. But Marco and I've never actually watched VeggieTales. I'm just aware that it exists. And the reason Veggie Seasons never clicked for me as to what it probably did, obviously I'd never launched the app, is because I too was just thinking of Veggie. No, I think I said VeggieTales a second ago when I meant Veggie Seasons. Anyway, you can see the depth of the confusion. Marco, you and I are vibing. Well, okay, so yeah, you can drive the app. You can drive any app from the extension. That's incredible. Yeah.
So that's what the provider extension does. I believe that's what shared preferences allows you to do as well, which is really useful if you're trying to debug something with your app and you're like, oh, I wonder what this screen would look like
in a
if
precise state.
if this state was a little bit different. Well, you can tweak it.
Plus, then you can build an app and you don't have to bother to add the little heart icons because you can just favorite things in the extension.
Yeah, there you go.
Great user experience.
Yes. So
all right,
Craig, last thing I wanted to show was some resources. Can I jump in and talk about those a little bit?
Sure, of course. Yeah.
Okay. So we have a section in this. Well, then here's your instructions on how you want to publish it. It's, simple. You want to make sure it validates and is good to go. Basically, it talks about the steps we just took. And then you just publish your package as usual, publish. When your users pull that down, they'll magically have that extension available from our tools or from DevTools. But resources. So we have a DevTools extension authors channel on Discord right here. There I was promoting this stream. And that was the DevTools channel. This is the DevTools extension authors channel. But you need to be part of the Flutter Discord server. Then you can add, come onto this channel. There's some great discussions that have happened on here from people trying to write extensions to, say, hey, I'm trying to do X, Y, or Z. You might even be able to find what you're looking for just searching through old messages. But great resource to be able to come and ask questions or share about the extension you're building and what you're learning. There's also this README, which is a great setup guide. And there's a Medium article, which is more or less the same content, but written in a more article fashion. But if you would rather read, article-y like content, maybe come here and check this out. And then there's a DevTools extensions page on flutter.dev. So this is in the DevTools section. We have all of our docs on the different tools, as well as this extensions page, which links out to other resources, gives you some brief info, and also shows the video that I mentioned that Con did. If you want to check that out, that's another resource. I'm sure this video will be linked on this page here soon as well. But and then I already talked about the example directory. You can go through there and look at the different examples that are provided by the package. So that's pretty much all I got for resources. As well as you could look at other extensions that are published, like I mentioned, Provider, Flame, Drift, Shared Preferences, RiverPod, ServerPod, all that stuff.
Yeah. Documentation by example, also always valuable alongside real documentation like you've written a ton of. Okay. Couple starred questions that I have. One, Simon from about an hour ago said, apparently you would ask them about potentially upstreaming this into the actual Flutter community package. And I guess this is there's a warm response from Simon on that. So that's great. So folks, the Font Awesome package may soon have this extension in it for real, which is great. And then actually, I guess these two questions are the kind of the same thing, and they're about memory, which was one of the things that we talked about in the beginning. So actually, the other version of this question is less context dependent. So again, about memory, what if they have a lot of extensions running? How will that impact memory usage? Currently, the DevTools and analysis server and all that does already have an impact on the person's laptop.
Mm-hmm.
So what have you kind of seen in that regard here?
So if a user is using the DevTools extension embedded in their IDE, that at least is a single page of DevTools. So it should just be loading what you need for your extension. Now, when DevTools is open in the browser, you could really bloat the memory, but if you're using every single tool and you're running, you're taking snapshots or you're pulling the timeline and you're doing all sorts of stuff because you have all the tools running, more often than not, a user is going to come in to use your extension and they may use a handful of the tools, but we find that the use cases are sometimes siloed to a specific need at that moment. And so the DevTools has been built so that if you're not using a page, it doesn't start requesting information. So if you never open the network page, for example, we're not
It's
going to
doing
make you
anything.
pay that cost of pulling for network profiles. So yes, there is a risk that if you're doing a lot of different things in DevTools at once, that it may impact the machine. But our limit really is just what you can do within a single Chrome tab. And we don't usually go up to that point. We have talked about maybe putting a memory limit on the extensions, or at least warning like, hey, this is using a lot of memory. You're approaching the limit, but that's not something we've implemented yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Great answer. I would have also highlighted that these things don't turn on until you need them. And if, for example, if you're turning on your state management libraries extension, you're probably like going slow and clicking through things and looking at state. And, I think debugging moments are often, it's like, sometimes a break point has been hit and like the app is literally frozen and you're looking at things. So I would expect the visibility into what the heck is going on in your app to be way, way, way more beneficial than, obviously you could have a dev tool running to like tell you what's happening during a complex animation set. And then maybe there would be some issues or something. But in general, I would expect this to, it doesn't turn on until you need it. And then you're probably just sitting there looking at what's wrong, reading logs anyway. So I would expect it'll be okay. All right. Well, Kenzie, any final thoughts on your end?
Final thoughts would just be for the community to feel empowered to jump in, start building tools, and know we're here to help. If you have run into issues or if you run into issues or have feature requests, jump into the DevTools issue tracker and file those requests there. We are eager to continue to roll this feature out and make it successful. So have at it is my last message to the community.
Great. Yeah. Well, folks, I think that will do it for us today. I apologize. We were off the last 2 weeks. I have had some fun travel this summer, and I have some more fun travel coming up. I believe I'll be here next week, and then I'll be out to attend Flutter and Friends in Stockholm. So I look forward to future events or to future streams. I'm going to keep the guests and libraries and whatnot coming. And everyone, thanks for tuning in today. And I will catch you all on the next one.
Thanks for having me. Bye.